At first glance, Lando Norris appears to be in the strongest position, leading the standings and holding the mathematical advantage. But when you break down the dynamics inside each team, the readiness of the drivers and the structure surrounding them, it becomes clear that Max Verstappen actually owns a far clearer path to the championship. Verstappen arrives in Abu Dhabi without the psychological weight that usually follows a title decider. He has been here many times before, and this season he has shown a consistent pattern. Whenever the car is competitive enough, he delivers efficiently. Very few drivers can remain that steady when the title is still alive from a points deficit. Another factor that tends to be underestimated is the strategic support Red Bull have at their disposal. Hadjar, Lawson and Tsunoda all have strong incentives not to interfere with Verstappen's race. They don't need to do anything dramatic. Simply holding position, managing pace or influencing the timing of undercuts and overcuts could be enough to keep Verstappen in the optimal window. That kind of structural advantage does not exist at McLaren, especially when their two drivers are dealing with tension inside the garage. Piastri lost momentum after Qatar, questions have been raised about his trust in the team, and he is even forced to miss FP1 due to rookie regulations. Norris, meanwhile, no longer has the reliable buffer he enjoyed earlier in the season. All of this places Verstappen in a far more stable situation heading into the finale. So with these factors combined, can McLaren realistically hold him back? Before we dive into the full breakdown, consider subscribing. It helps you follow the complete analysis right through to the end. The most overlooked variable in this title fight is not McLaren's tension, nor Red Bull's late-season recovery, but the structure of drivers surrounding Verstappen. For the first time in years, Red Bull arrive at a championship decider with a fully aligned network. One lead driver fighting for the title and three other cars, spread across both Red Bull Racing and Racing Bulls, whose individual circumstances naturally push them towards supporting Verstappen's campaign. None of them need to enact explicit team orders. Their motivations, career trajectories and recent announcements make cooperation the most rational course of action. The first piece of this network is Yuki Tsunoda, who has lost his full-time seat and will transition to reserve driver next year. This context is crucial. Tsunoda knows that his future in Formula One depends entirely on Red Bull's perception of his professionalism and value to the program. His output this season has been erratic, but Qatar served as a reminder of what he can deliver. Strong race pace, the ability to climb from deep in the field, and a willingness to fight midfield rivals aggressively. That performance matters because it frames what he could do in Abu Dhabi. In a weekend where track position at the end of lap 1 can dictate an entire race's complexion, Tsunoda has every incentive to ensure he is not in Verstappen's way, and every reason to avoid blocking a Red Bull victory run. As the driver concluding his final race before a step down, Tsunoda's focus is not personal glory, but preservation of reputation. This is where the alignment becomes clearer. A farewell race can tilt either way, messy or disciplined, but Tsunoda has signalled repeatedly that he values his place in the Red Bull family. Being seen as cooperative in a title decider could only strengthen his long-term prospects. Even something as simple as holding up a McLaren for 2 corners or extending a stint to sit awkwardly in Norris's pit window could become decisive. None of it would violate any regulation. It is simply racecraft shaped by incentive. The second pillar, and arguably the most strategically significant, is Hadjar. His situation is unique. He has been formally promoted to the main Red Bull team for 2026. "I'm so grateful to Oracle Red Bull Racing for giving me the opportunity," he said. "I feel ready to go." The weight of that statement defines his stakes. A rookie promoted to partner Verstappen must demonstrate discipline and tactical maturity long before he steps into the RB chassis. This finale is his first unofficial test. Hadjar's season, including a maiden podium and consistent midfield pace, has shown he is fast enough to sit within the cluster of cars that typically influence undercuts and overcuts. If he qualifies near the top 10 or even just ahead of one McLaren, his presence becomes more than symbolic. Abu Dhabi is a circuit where a slower car occupying track position can stretch a gap long enough to disrupt an opponent's entire race rhythm. Hadjar does not need to defend aggressively. He does not even need to fight. He simply needs to run his race, hit his marks, and maintain enough pace to force McLaren into suboptimal timing. The strategic layers of modern Formula One reward even small delays, and Hadjar's motivations align perfectly with Verstappen's interests. Liam Lawson forms the third component of this system. Retained by Racing Bulls for 2026, Lawson has built a reputation for stability and clean execution. He is not a driver who forces risky moments, and that quality is precisely what can make him influential. In Qatar, he finished ahead of Tsunoda and demonstrated that he can sit comfortably at the front of the midfield train. His role in Abu Dhabi will naturally follow that pattern: run consistently, maintain rhythm, and hold his station. What elevates Lawson's importance is how the McLarens tend to interact with midfield teams. When a McLaren car gets stuck in traffic, especially behind a consistent low-error driver, the loss of time compounds quickly. This has been a recurring theme. Both McLaren drivers have lost points this year through slow escapes from midfield packs. Lawson's racecraft is precisely the kind that can force McLaren into a bad strategic trade. Either they risk a slow pit window or they overextend a tyre stint. Neither outcome benefits Norris or Piastri, but both outcomes give Verstappen more room to dictate his race. This alignment of incentives is unprecedented for Red Bull in recent years. It is not a team order. It is not coordinated blocking. It is simply the result of career positions. Tsunoda wanting to remain valued inside the program, Hadjar entering the biggest promotion of his career, and Lawson fighting to reinforce his place. Each of them benefits from Red Bull winning the Drivers' Championship because it strengthens the ecosystem they are part of. They all gain by protecting Verstappen's clean air. They all lose by compromising him. Contrast this with McLaren. Their structure is fractured at the worst possible time. Piastri, once the points leader, has slid into strategic misfortune and a crisis of confidence. The Qatar fiasco, where the team cost him an almost certain victory, continues to cast a shadow. Jacques Villeneuve stated bluntly that Piastri likely believes the team doesn't want him to win. When you combine frustration with a missed FP1, the psychological load becomes heavy. A driver in that position is unlikely to function as a tactical asset for his teammate. He is fighting for his own dignity, his own standing, and his own mathematical chance. The assertion that Piastri will not help Norris, no, because until the last lap Piastri could still win, is not an emotional exaggeration. It is a factual reflection of the competitive incentives. Norris, meanwhile, is exposed. He is leading the championship, but he is the only McLaren in a position to defend that lead. Piastri cannot be counted on. The team cannot impose harsh team orders because it contradicts their long-held philosophy. And every strategic trap laid by Racing Bulls is one that Norris must avoid alone. Unlike Verstappen, who has an ecosystem, Norris has only a car and a gap. It is in these nuances that Verstappen's championship odds grow larger. His rivals face constriction. He faces expansion. When Verstappen says he is far more relaxed now and that losing the title wouldn't change the fact he's had an amazing season, he speaks from the position of a driver aware that the external structure now works in his favour. When Zak Brown compared him to a horror character who resurfaces unexpectedly and Verstappen responded, "He can call me Chucky," the remark captured the dynamic perfectly. He is the threat who appears just when rivals believe they have escaped. This final race, therefore, is not a simple three-way duel. It is Verstappen with a support net versus two McLarens operating independently. It is a Red Bull organisation aligned in incentives versus a McLaren organisation burdened by internal imbalance. It is a scenario in which every Racing Bulls car can influence strategy without breaking any rule. And it is a scenario where the smallest delay, 3 corners, 2 seconds, 1 missed pit window, could determine the entire championship. So the real question becomes, with all 3 Red Bull-aligned drivers positioned to shape the rhythm of the race, are Norris and Piastri actually fighting Verstappen, or are they fighting the entire Red Bull ecosystem?